Well, hello and welcome to episode number 373 of the Plain Talking UK podcast. I'm Carlos, and in this week's show we go camping inside an Airbus which has its very own tent. A Ryanair flight decides to save on weight and leaves some passengers behind, and Southwest unveil a very special livery. In the military news this week, the US decided to get rid of some C-130s in a downsizing mission. The US Air Force F-35s take off from the world's finest aircraft carrier, and the US Air Force signs a contract for ultra-short takeoff aircraft. So joining me this week, as always, here with me in the PTUK Master Suite studios, it is the master of all things slidey tech and twiddly knobs. It is Matt Smith.
Oh, is Nev here then? Oh, that's good. I'll go and have a lie down. Excellent. Indeed. Hello, mate. You're right.
Yeah. How are you? You've had a really busy week this week, haven't you?
Yeah, it's been quite a full-on week. Yeah, it's quite a lot of stuff being visited you twice this week. I had tea at Carlos's house. It was very nice.
You had an evening meal, didn't you?
I did, absolutely.
Yeah.
Had a bit of smoked salmon.
Smoked
really
salmon.
nice.
And we had sweet corn. It was
sweet
lovely.
corn and everything,
yeah,
yes.
Nice, yeah.
Absolutely. There's a story I could tell about sweet corn, but maybe not on air.
And Matt didn't drink any wine at all.
No, not a single drop passed my lips.
No,
I'm still teetotal, you know. Yeah.
It was nice to have you round, but
yeah, missed it.
He's been on full on tech mode round my house this week. So
that's a word, certainly. Yes.
Yes. So joining us, he's back this week. He had a bit of a break last week, but he's back. We're pleased to say is our master of all things BA. It's Neville Bounds.
Yes, hello everybody. Nice to be back. And yes, a very hectic week at work. Back to doing exhibitions again, seeing people for real, which has not been on the agenda for some time. So we're down at Battersea Evolution, right in the middle of Battersea Park, for a couple of days this week, and it was nice to see some people there, which was brilliant. Hadn't seen them for ages. But doing manning a booth as an exhibition stand with a mask on for 8.5 hours each day was not my idea of a good time, I've got to say. But nonetheless, at least we're making a start. We're gradually getting back.
I thought you were on location there, Nev. Where are you this week there with the green screen?
That's Gibraltar. That's the apron at Gibraltar there. Yeah.
Very nice to see.
Absolutely.
Nice to see.
And genuinely, Nev, I mean, because it's been your job has been very different for the last sort of like 15 months. I mean, this is essentially going out there doing what you're at BIAMP to do, isn't it? In this particular case, I mean, how?
Well, the thing is, all of us are used to, meeting people, doing things face to face, in person, and so the last 16 months have been extremely odd. And I've got to say, I mean, that there have been some casualties out there, especially in the live event and rental and staging worlds, where there've been no gigs at all. So that's been very difficult. But we've been really good, actually. The management of our company have been superb, and we've all, frankly speaking, we've all kept our jobs, which has been great.
It's been amazing.
We're gradually getting back to normal now, although I think, as we keep seeing in the news, we've got some way to go yet, but we will get there.
What was it like, sort of, all the humans? I mean, we're so not used to interacting with other humans, like, for real.
One of the things that we didn't really think about before we did all this was, how are we going to recognise people without looking at their badges? Because when you've got a mask on, you can only see people's eyes, of course. Now, if you're doing a Zoom or a Teams call, you know who you're going to be speaking to. But when you're on an exhibition booth, you've got people walking up to you. You don't know who's going to walk up to you next. And that was a definite thing. And of course, a few of us have got a bit of, how should we say, lockdown lard going on. So maybe we're slightly larger than we were previously. And this means there's some very odd problems with recognition.
You're just storing for winter. That's all. You're storing for winter,
Exactly. But it was great to be back and seeing all my industry chums again. So that was brilliant. Yeah,
I bet.
Good. It's nice. I like that. That's the good thing.
Yeah,
slowly getting back to normal.
Some form of normality is finally beginning. Yes.
So joining us as well this week, he's back again. We're pleased to say, and it's the man who, if Wikipedia made a page about all the aircraft he's flown, they would need to employ some extra web browsers to fill up. It is, of course, Armando.
Hello, guys. I think I'm the odd man out this week. I had a pretty easy week. I only flew the platypus once, and that was the easy part of my week. I think keeping up with the house is the harder thing. But yeah, compared to you guys, I had a vacation this week.
And also for all the tech people out there, I apologise desperately for Carlos's attempt to refer to web browsers like that. You could not have got that more wrong if you'd have tried.
The thing, I've been watching the reruns of the IT Crowd on Channel 4 this week. That's
Right.
why.
Okay. Yes, but the information in that is accurate. Anyway, sorry.
You hope. But how are things anyway with you, Armando, over across the pond there?
Good, pretty easy. Like I said, it's just it's summertime here, so we're just doing all the summertime family activities. Maddie's in karate camp, and then she's in CrossFit camp this week, and then karate camp next week, and then a little bit of flying here and there. That's how I keep my sanity, is flying the platypus.
Well, actually, I took a little trip up to Beccles yesterday.
Oh, you did,
for the afternoon, and met up with Stuart, one of our good friends of the show, Stuart O'Neill, who's a pilot as well, and a training pilot as well, and flies the parachute plane. And we had a good chat in Chinwag, and there's some busy up there as usual. With the stuff, and can't stress enough how nice the food is up there.
Yes,
the
indeed.
food is so nice.
Yeah, I know, and I'm amazed that Gemma A allowed it, and B somehow you weren't rumbled.
It was
for
her idea. I'm going to say this
Are
now
you?
on live on air. It was Gemma's idea to go up to Beccles to have dinner,
Right.
and yes,
I still don't believe you.
it was honestly. You
No,
can ask her. It was her
I will.
idea.
Don't you worry about that. Anyway,
You guys must be out of conversation topics then, because she knew that you wouldn't pay attention to her.
Well, one of the things that did make me chuckle, Armando, was the comment that you did put on my picture on the old social medias of.
Oh yeah, I did say that you looked like a puppy that got to go to the dog park for the day.
Yeah, that is true.
Oh,
yeah,
dear.
absolutely.
Thank you for that, Armando.
Tail clearly wagging throughout most of that visit.
It was,
absolutely.
100%. So, Nev, you have got a little piece of news, which is good news for me and you, and for anyone else heading to a certain island this year.
Yes, we heard from the UK government yesterday that Malta is now on our green list, which
Woohoo!
means we can go and we can come back without quarantine. That's assuming that the Maltese government, excuse me, will allow us in. That's the other thing to think about. But of course, at the moment, we still have to take tests before you go, and tests before you come back, and tests when you get back, even on the green zone business, which I think is mad. So I'm really hoping by the time the end of September comes around, which is when the Malta Air Show is, then they might have dropped that as well. So let's see how we get on. But that is a very good piece of news, I have to say.
I mean, the other thing I wanted to sort of mention, if that's okay, because of course, not that long ago, we basically had Portugal put on the green list, and then I think it was it 2 weeks later it was then pulled? I mean, are we going to be having another conversation in 2 weeks' time where the decision has actually been reversed?
Well, of course, actually, it's been put on the green watch list, as they call it now, just to add confusion to it. I'm operating on the basis, excuse me, if we do get stuck and we have to stay there for another 6 weeks, a few months, I'm not that bothered by that.
Mrs. Nev is coming with you, isn't she, on this one?
No.
Oh dear.
No.
Oh, okay. Fair enough then. Right, okay. Oh dear. Going to come back with a very depleted
I just hope
PT
Stuart's
UK.
not watching.
Yeah, absolutely. Come back with very depleted PT UK coffers, I think, if that happens.
Actually, it's good news as well if I know Jenny's in the chat room over in Rome, but for you, Jenny, if you can come out to the Malta Air Show this year, the Aeronautica Militare Italiana is planning to support the Malta International Air Show this year by means of an AMX fast jet advanced trainer. The AMX is flown by the Italian Air Force and is flown by the 51st Stormo from Istrana Air Base located in Veneto. This type of aircraft is quite rare, and its numbers are dwindling as the Italian Air Force continues to modernise itself with plans to replace the aircraft in the near future. So, that they shall be there. That's another one announced this week, Nev. So we've got that to look forward to as well, haven't we?
Exciting times.
And,
times.
no,
We've got something else to mention, because those who are watching on YouTube will notice that there's quite an iconic aircraft that is our backdrop here. Will you stop doing that? Honestly, he's like a child. There's a very iconic aircraft that a picture of which was sent to us by Jonathan Warner, because they took a little trip to Bryce Norton. Now, many of you will obviously be very aware of the fact that this huge and frankly ridiculous looking aircraft went into Bryce Norton this week. But I think it's safe to say leaving, should we say, had some challenges to be faced. I don't know if somebody wants to sort of talk us through this. So this is.
I don't know that the airplane had any challenges. I think the airplane was just fine.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, thanks to Jonathan Warner for some of those pictures. I was actually watching them on social media too. The AN-225 is just an awesome airplane. And as it was leaving Bryce, I think it was headed over to Kiev. This aircraft was actually empty going back. However, it's so big that it still did a static takeoff at Bryce Norton heading back to Kiev. And right before we cut there, I gotta admit, I think that fence needed replacing. If you're gonna have one of the most important air bases in the UK, Bryce Norton, who they carry millions of tons of cargo every year, you can't have just a 50-year-old wood fence. So I think, in fact, I think the AN-225 was doing Bryce Norton a favor in helping them replace their fence that quickly. But no, I was really impressed at how quick the Ministry of Defense Police was on the scene to make sure that nobody was either hurt or nobody crossed that fence to get a better picture.
Yeah, I can say I think it's probably more the latter. Make sure nobody crossed that fence. But so I mean, explain to me, because I mean the aircraft seems, not being funny, it seems a long way away from this actual fence. I mean, is it just literally the sheer volume of air that it's disturbing is why it's pushing this fence over?
Absolutely. Any one of these aircraft, whether it's a C5, an AN-225, a 747, when they're operating out of a short runway or what they consider as a short runway, I mean, you're talking tens of thousands of pounds of thrust that are going. I think there was a graphic somewhere. If you work on any airport, they have this little graphic that says, 50 feet from the aircraft, the wind is going about 200 miles per hour, and then 100 feet, it's down to 100 miles per hour, and then at about 500 feet it's still a 75 mile per hour wind or something like that. It depends on the aircraft. So yeah, even a couple hundred feet away you're still getting a good, almost a hurricane force wind.
Yeah, 6 of those engines on there. Each engine producing 51,600 pounds of thrust each engine.
Yeah, there you go. So
absolutely.
And if they were empty, I bet you they probably weren't using full thrust. It was just a static takeoff, probably just due to the sheer length of the runway. But
I see the MOD police and the Ford Focus there.
Yeah, of course, absolutely.
Yes, very tactical vehicle. The Ford Focus.
Absolutely. Yeah, indeed, that's clearly the future. And just worth mentioning there also that if you're watching the YouTube video there, the aviation highlights is where that video came from today. That was available on there. Great videos on that channel. So do make sure you give that a look. Yeah, absolutely.
So hello to everyone who's joined us in the live YouTube chat room this evening. All the family members in there, as always, this evening. Hello to Richard Adams, Captain Cruz, Jenny in Rome, as I said earlier, as well. Tony S, hello to you. Mazus Karim is in there as well. Hello to you, Mazus. Flyer152 is also joining us. Jonathan Warner, our picture provider there and video as well. Well, hello to you, Jonathan. David Corsten's in the chat room as well. Hello to you, David. Hope things are going well over there in sunny Spain. We have got as well Masha as well in the chat room. Hello to you, Masha. Hope you're keeping well. Dave Abbey. Hello to you, Dave Abbey. Welcome to you as well. Nice to see you in the chat room. And just scrolling down, Dirk S. Hello to you, Dirk. Hope you're keeping well as well. And obviously Neville's in there with his blue spanner, keeping an eye.
Oh, is he wielding his spanner?
Wielding his spanner, yeah. So welcome to you. Don't forget though, if you are listening to the audio version of the show, to join us. If you want to join us over on YouTube, as we are at the moment, recording a live show, take yourselves over to YouTube, find us Plain Talking UK over on YouTube, hit the subscribe button and the bell icon, which is right next door to be notified on your device when we are live and recording new episodes, because we would love to have you joining us in the live chat room. So, without further ado, I think it's time to do some... Oh, got some beer going down there. Some commercial news this week. So if all the team is ready.
Indeed, let's go. Because what you can't see when we're doing this is Armando is busy chopping his way through an entire punnet of strawberries.
And they look like very nice strawberries.
They do look
as well.
like very nice strawberries as well, absolutely.
You know what's funny is this is a leftover Maddie lunch.
Is it? Okay. Fair enough.
That's good. That's good.
I like it.
I'm
Anyway,
literally the Hoover in our house.
right,
And I just eat
okay.
all the
I
leftovers.
mean, surely that's why you buy dogs.
I'm basically like a raccoon.
Right.
Yeah, the dogs eat better than me. Anyway, that's got nothing to do with commercial news. Commercial news. So.
The first news story in the commercial news.
Commercial
this week.
military. How would that work?
That's a
Is that
new-
privately
that is
funded
a
military?
whole new
Let's not
segment.
open that can of worms.
We've done a couple stories on commercial military about
okay.
contract aggressor aircraft.
I'm sorry I
And
asked.
actually,
Yeah.
that AN-225 was commercial military because they were hauling,
True.
I guess, helicopters back from Afghanistan.
You know when you do a throwaway comment and you immediately regret it?
Actually, that's not me. I'm going to give that one to Captain Cruz or actually Tony S in the chat room. So,
Okay.
hey, our chat room is on my side. They keep.
Well, of course, they're always on your side. It's just because you're awesome. Anyway, should we get started?
Yes, this one comes to us from edition.cnn.com, and the headline: Airbus designs in-flight COVID quarantine tent. Yes, you heard me right. a tent.
Easy for you to say.
As more aircraft return to the skies, airports and airlines continue to enforce measures designed to keep passengers safe as possible while COVID-19 remains a problem. But even face masks and temperature checks are commonplace, as are destination requirements for proof of vaccination or negative tests. There's still a possibility that a passenger could develop COVID symptoms mid-flight. God, it sounds like one of those films you see on a weird dodgy video
in the
channel.
cinema.
Yeah, what are those things?
Yeah.
On a packed plane, it can be tricky to actually isolate a symptomatic traveller in line with the 2-metre distance recommended by global aviation body IATA and the US Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. That's what Airbus PAX CASE, Passenger Containment Area for Symptomatic Events, concept is intended for. It's a semi-transparent plastic sheeting encircling a potential infectious passenger in an isolation bubble. So Ingo Wugetzer, a vice president, mind me to say that after a few beers, of cabin marketing at Airbus, tells the CNN traveller that the PAX case is designed to be either in a fixed position in the aircraft cabin or a kind of on a curtain rail, or work as a removable sheeting to be fixed into place on the ceiling by strong tape. The barrier would encircle one seat row, cutting off the 3 seats, including the one occupied by the symptomatic passenger. It's a very simple and easy principle applied by the crew in case of emergency need that's needed, explains Wugetzer. The concept has been nominated in the Clean and Safe Air Travel category in the 2021 Crystal Cabin Awards, which focus on the latest trends in aircraft interior innovation. The Crystal Cabin Awards usually have 8 categories, but this year it's focused on 2 key awards that recognise where aviation is right now, the Clean and Safe Air Travel category and the Judge's Choice category. Just to point out as well that these these medical curtains like these, which are shown on this story, are not exactly a new feature. According to one of our sources, a few airlines in the world have these already, and each aircraft is normally has 4 to 6 seats, which you can block off and completely cover with a curtain for privacy, mainly used for recover from major medical incidents for passengers and births on board and things like that. But this new idea here, which was just showing on the show here, is a totally sealed environment that can be used to obviously quarantine someone on board a flight.
See, now my issue with this...
Really hot?
Well, yes, that's a thing. But hopefully you've got access to as a category says, also known as the Mile High Club tent, which I think is a good shout. My issue with this is if you're in flight and the passenger suddenly starts showing symptoms, it's already too late, isn't it?
I would have said so, yeah.
I mean, this is like sort of shutting the stable door after the horse has bolted. I mean,
That's good.
It's already too late, isn't it? Once they're on the aircraft and then they show symptoms, it's everybody's got it.
Captain Cruise is saying isolate the passenger into the cockpit.
No.
I can think of worse places to be isolated.
Yes. No, I'll stay in my nice little pod, thank you very much, with the door shut. Thank you.
I don't want to make light of it, but I've been to a lot of Chinese takeout restaurants during quarantine, and
right. Where are we going with this? I'm nervous.
Well, no, I've seen how they put up the plastic sheeting with some duct tape, and I can't imagine how much Airbus is charging for the exact same design that they use at your local Golden King.
But I'm right though, aren't I? I mean, surely once the person's on board and they're I think I don't feel well. Surely it's already too late for everyone.
Yes, it is, and I mean, don't forget all this business happens long before people start showing symptoms as well. Very often, so I think it's. As you say, it is shutting the stable door after the event, isn't it, somewhat?
And some people don't even show any symptoms.
They don't
at all.
True, absolutely. Yeah. Kids especially, isn't it? It does seem to be children especially who can have an event like this, and it's. I mean, my little cousin. I mean, my cousin's 8 years old. He wasn't showing any symptoms at all. It was actually his younger sister that is the reason why the family were tested for COVID. And it turned out that Alfie had COVID, and yet he wasn't showing any symptoms or anything like that at the time. This is the thing. There's still so much that we don't know about this. This is what I'm so nervous about. I guess.
Dirk in the chat room says they'll call it the Neville private cabin.
Well, there is that, absolutely. I mean, let's be honest, as long as you're in seat 1A when this happens, and they put a nice little... I mean, wouldn't you quite like the isolation, wouldn't you? Where
I'm liking this very much.
Even if you're not in 1A. If you're in 28F, I'm going to, put a little pepper in the nose, and next thing you know, I got my own private cabin.
Yeah.
And I only paid £29 for it, Nev.
Oh, boy.
Not a four-figure sum. Anyway, before Nev explodes...
Nev, this next one's for you, and this is all about BA and Gatwick.
Oh, this is awful news again. It's on the airportwatch.org.uk and also from thepointsguide.co.uk as well. And it says that British Airways has revived plans to abandon Gatwick, delivering a fresh blow to Britain's second biggest airport. Airline bosses have launched a review into concentrating the flag carriers operation at Heathrow, according to industry sources. Gatwick has been the hardest hit of any European airport due to the coronavirus restrictions on international travel, according to research by pilots union BALPA, with daily arrivals and departures down by 92% during the first week of June compared with the same period in 2019. It's understood that the review of Gatwick follows an order from IAG, BA's parent company, which is fearful that it could lose lucrative takeoff and landing slots at Heathrow. Given Heathrow's popularity, takeoff and landing slots are highly sought after and can be traded by airlines for tens of millions of pounds. In normal times, airlines are required to operate 80% of the maximum possible flights to retain their slots. Failure to comply would result in slots being handed back to a central authority and then reallocated to other airlines. A possible solution is to move Gatwick's flights to Heathrow, which may have operational and connection efficiencies by operating all of these flights from one airport rather than two. BA raised the possibility of quitting Gatwick more than a year ago in anticipation that demand for air travel will remain depressed for a number of years. Grant Shapps, the Transport Secretary, issued a waiver of such use it or lose it rules. And if he decides not to extend the waiver until demands return to pre-pandemic levels, BA may need to focus on airports such as Heathrow, where the slots are worth the most, so that they do not lose them. Luis Gallego, Chief Executive of IAG, told analysts this month, Gatwick is an important decision that we need to take as a group. It's true that we have the issue with the slots. Gatwick has some strategic value, but we need to be competitive there. This crisis is going to change the profile of the demand, so we are analysing the different options. BA declined to comment on this. Well, I think that this is absolutely awful news. Gatwick is a very, very busy airport, especially in the summer months. It was always known as the holiday airport, although it did operate a lot of scheduled flights as well for the business traveller. And just think of the number of people that are employed at Gatwick, whether it's ground handling, maintenance, ops, ticketing, all those people that work there. And I think the trouble is if Gatwick start losing the income like this, this has not been helped by the government, I have to say, mucking about with all these rules all the time. The uncertainty that this is bringing to the whole aviation sector is awful. So I just hope that they can keep the whole thing running, keep the operation running.
I'm going to play slight devil's advocate here. I completely understand where you're coming from in terms of the importance of Gatwick, within the network. But given the fact that, obviously, Terminal 5 is more or less... I know there are a handful of flights that go out of Terminal 5 that aren't BA, but it is only a handful, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not with the One World Alliance, so Iberia, and I think Finnair occasionally as well, yes.
But given, obviously, what's happened to this industry that we know and love, whilst I completely understand where you're coming from, I can also sort of see it from BA's perspective, where you're thinking, is it just not going to be, in a time when one has got to watch the pennies so closely as they're having to now, would it not make more sense that, if you wanted to get on a BA flight, that Heathrow Terminal 5 is where you went for it?
Yeah, I think they have to, if the finances and the banking and the credit arrangements will allow, I think they have to prepare for a medium to long term view with this. Yeah. Because don't forget, this has all been going on in total it's been 18 months now, hasn't it, really, from when it all started. And people said it would be over in 3 months, 6 months, a year, and here we are, 18 months into it, more or less. And I think that with aviation and the travel industry generally, when we all know it's not the flick of a switch, you can't just turn it on and off. As demand requires. And I think that it would be, again, I'm not running the operation, but I would have thought it would have been better if they could, to retain all of the slots that they can, even in terms of, they'll have to make a bit of a loss in the meantime, but obviously it will come back, and we know that the demand for holiday travel especially is extremely high. So I still think that there's plenty of room, stuff left in the system there, but of course it's just this interim period that people have to get through. Agreed.
Well, yes, indeed. We're going to Ryanair now, and an airport I actually know something about. Because I had the great pleasure of going here with my friend Owen. And to be honest with you, if Owen hadn't have been there, I probably would have ended up being somebody who was left behind by Ryanair, because I'm not very good at doing this sort of thing. But anyway, so the Ryanair 737 takes off from Toulouse, leaving around 50 passengers behind. So the Boeing 737-800 with registration Echo Indica India Delta Papa Kilo was operating flight Foxtrot Romeo 35. I'm just showing off now. 3551 from Toulouse to Fez
in Morocco.
Oh, is that? Oh, it is just Fez. It's because it's Fez Saz.
It's like the hat, the little
Fez
red
Saz.
hat.
It was the Saz that was tripping me up. Okay, fair enough. Just Fez Airport in Morocco on the 19th of... Stop having so much fun at my expense, you lot. To Fez Saz. Is that right? Nobody's responding.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, in Morocco on the night. Anyway, some airport in Morocco on the 19th of June.
Fez.
London Fez on the 19th of June. Although the flight was scheduled to take off at 7:25, the flight was actually delayed and it departed Toulouse at around about 8:43 on Saturday morning. However, 50 passengers were refused to board, although they had arrived on time at the airport. The gate was closed at 6:55, half an hour before the scheduled departure. According to the airline's policy, passengers must arrive at the boarding gates at least 30 minutes before departure, and boarding ends 20 minutes before departure. However, this time it was closed earlier. So the flight was to take off at 7:25 a.m. and when we went to the boarding lounge at 7:10 after waiting for 2 hours at check-in, we were told that the plane had already left, said one of the passengers who had arrived with his mother at 5 a.m. I am with my mother, who is in a wheelchair, and we were only told to go home. And it wasn't even Ryanair who answered us. There is no one from the company here. They are only subcontractors, he continued. According to La Dépêche, the pilot took the initiative to leave the airport several minutes early without waiting for missing passengers without any reason. Contrary to what passengers claim to have been informed, Flight Radar 24 data indicates that the flight FR3551 on June the 19th left Toulouse at 8:42 a.m, 1 hour and 20 minutes late. Ryanair does not have a passenger counter at Toulouse Airport, and the airline said that the reimbursement procedure was going to be initiated without offering an alternative flight.
Okay. Can I defend the crew first?
Oh, absolutely. No,
Go.
My head is immediately going where I think you're going, Armando. So absolutely.
When I was flying for the airlines, we had the option to. It's established that the gate closes at a certain time, and that allows you the opportunity to sometimes leave 10 or 15 minutes early. That you may do that for weather, you may do that for ATC delays. They may call you up and say, hey, there's a reroute, so you're going to need an additional 10 minutes to get there. And if you don't take some kind of action like that, it's going to affect the entire schedule down the line for that aircraft and potentially the crew. Now, what happens after you leave the gate is entirely out of your control. So I have had plenty of times where I've left the gate early. All my passengers were there, or I've done this too, where I was maybe missing one passenger, but we said, you know what, the weather's coming in, that passenger can get rebooked. We got to go because like to nerd out, like Spock said, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the one, right? And we would taxi out. You get 3 taxiways down, and then somebody at ATC says, hey, we're at a ground stop because this happened and this happened, or you guys can't take off because there's a disabled aircraft in Dallas Fort Worth. They're down to 1 runway operations. We got to push your departure time, so you're just going to sit on the ramp with the engines running. So I am sure nobody in any kind of front end or back end, cabin crew or front end, have any malicious intent to their actions. No. And there is entirely a reason why they left early and then sat on the ramp. So I'm going to defend the crew. We don't know why. It would probably behoove Ryanair to at least explain it, but maybe they're, this is just another day in Ryanair's life.
They're very busy. I don't. They're not. Yeah. It is a great point, Armando. As I say, I completely understand where you're coming from, and also, I mean, part of me, when you've got through that gate, I mean, part of me is like thinking, well, why would you leave? Do you know what I mean? I mean, why wouldn't you be hanging around the area at that point? I know there was a 2-hour delay, but you would certainly be watching boards closely, because I have no doubt it was advertised within the terminal that that even if they pushed forward the closure of the gate, they do tell you to watch your boards all the time, don't they? I mean, I don't think I'm speaking out of turn here, am I?
No, our gate agents would always tell if there was a delay, we didn't know, it's going left, it's going right.
Yeah.
We'd say, hey, just stick around the boarding area if you want to get some food, but leave somebody here, or please watch your phone for notifications.
Yeah, absolutely. Or at least watch the screens. Do you know what I mean? Especially if you're, say this happened, say at Stansted, for example, you've got all the departure screens that have got all the information on there. I mean, I don't know. We sort of reached a point where humans are not willing to take responsibility for their own actions, are they? I mean, it's just like.
But they were doing an old school verbal announcement, I'd imagine, wouldn't they? If it was something major.
Toulouse is a silent airport, as John was saying.
Blimey.
But I've been out of there. It wasn't an issue. It's not a thing. I don't understand. I mean, obviously, Nev, this would never happen at BA, of course. I mean, that's a given.
I'm not sure about that. But as Armando said, there's clearly absolutely no malicious intent here whatsoever. There are operational reasons why stuff happens, and of course, let's be honest. Under normal circumstances, I'm talking about 2019 levels now. Yeah. Most flights depart very close to being on time without any hitches. Yeah. They go from A to B. It's all so smooth. We're all so used to it. But just occasionally stuff happens, and it's just one of those things, really. And I think that of course, once the press get hold of something, then there's a lot of opportunity for embellishment and exaggeration, or maybe not being in possession of the full facts.
Quite, and yes, that's where I think we pull the plug on that.
So, Armando, moving on to you with a Neo story.
Yeah, this story is from Flight Global, and Airbus is emphasizing the importance of A320 Neo family airspeed checks during takeoff. After developmental simulations identified some potential effects on aircraft response from inconsistent or consistent erroneous airspeed indications, which consistent erroneous equals inconsistent. So these erroneous indications within the same speed range could arise from false information being derived from either 2 or 3 blocked pitot tubes. So Airbus did some simulations. They conducted this as part of a continuous development testing. They found that the aircraft's response could be affected by such a situation, especially during rotation, right when the aircraft where the pilots are pulling back, in the Airbus, on the stick and getting the airplane into the air. Now, this could lead to an unstable flight path after takeoff and possible reduced aircraft control, according to the European Union Aviation Safety Agency. So EASA says that this condition has not been encountered during normal operations. It's particularly concerned, though, over some occurrences as aircraft return to flight from long-term pandemic-related storage. Several incidents involving pitot-static blockages, such as those caused by insects or sometimes maintenance, that's been recorded in history all the way back to the beginning of aviation. Airbus and EASA have already distributed several safety communications reminding operators to apply protections to stored aircraft and follow detailed procedures returning them to service, especially regarding the checks on air data probes. They warned in a 21 June directive, they said that an increasing number of operational disruptions have been reported due to airspeed discrepancies. Now, Airbus is reinforcing this need for airspeed checks during critical phases of flight as a result of its analysis, and provides instructions on how to abort the takeoff in case of unreliable airspeed indication. Now, in the airlines, we practice in the simulator unreliable airspeeds, especially after some high-profile events. Now, for our listeners and that aren't airplane savvy, or system
you could say
savvy.
Format what we're going
Format.
to do. Yeah.
So the pitot-static system is something that's been around since the beginning of I guess technologically advanced aircraft. So call it the 1940s and on. The pitot tube is directly linked. It's somewhere out on the airplane. Sometimes it's on the fuselage, sometimes it's out on the wing, but that's ram air that's coming into the airspeed indicator.
Okay, what's ram air?
literally just air going into a tube. There's no filters. There's no nothing.
Right,
It's literally
okay.
just going in there and hitting a little diaphragm that makes an electronic circuit.
Okay.
The static part of the system is exactly that. It's static air. There's usually a port somewhere further down the aircraft on the fuselage near the tail. It could be, depending on the airplane, could be a bunch of different places. And that's providing additional data to the airspeed indicator, the vertical speed indicator, and the altimeter. And that's how the aircraft know, or the instruments know. It's measuring the difference between these known pressures, the static pressure, and then ram air pressure.
Okay,
Now,
so
again,
so forgive my naivety here, Armando. Why does that matter? What does that information provide to the aircraft in order for this not to happen?
specifically with the pitot tubes that EASA and Airbus are talking about, that would produce some unreliable airspeed indications. So
Right.
in a general aviation aircraft, that pitot tube with the air just going right into the tube, that's getting fed into the airspeed indicator, little round dial. And modern aircraft, that's going to an air data computer, an
Right.
ADC. So if the system is getting erroneous data because that pitot tube is blocked, now when you go for your PPL, they talk a lot about icing. If you don't turn the pitot heat on, or in an advanced aircraft, the probe heat on, that the tube could actually freeze over, and then you would have no idea how fast you're actually going. And the living out in the West in the US, there's these wasps and bugs and critters that love to make homes inside of airspeed tubes, inside of pitot tubes. And if you don't do a good pre-flight on a general aviation aircraft or even a big airliner, this could totally lead to an unreliable. Now, as an airliner is taking off, and I promise I'll wrap up with this, otherwise we'll get the rickets. As an airliner is rolling down the runway, an air data computer is calculating all of these factors from the different pitot tubes, right? It could be 2 or 3 systems in an advanced airliner. If it reads a discrepancy between 2 systems or 3 systems, it'll alert the crew that, hey, something is off. Now, if you're doing that in the air and you get that perhaps a frozen or a failed heating element or something like that, then there are procedures that we practice to essentially just fly the airplane. But if it's happening during a critical phase of flight like takeoff, where the crew is just following this flight director, it's just a little carrot. It's just like a video game that they're trying to pitch up and put the little carrot and put the little dot on the carrot and fly away. That could be very, very dangerous if the system is saying, hey, you're going faster or slower. So pitch down, pitch up in order to maintain an airspeed. And the crew could potentially aggravate their situation by following or not recognizing an erroneous indication.
I think also, I was just going to say that the looking on some of the sites that I follow, there's quite a few test flights being done now for aircraft that have been in long-term storage, just flying empty, just to make sure things are working. Because certainly on takeoff, the crew, if they did have an unreliable airspeed, I mean, physically speaking, you can't really tell the difference between 130 knots or 150 knots. You know, the whole sensation of speed is lost at that sort of level, isn't it? So I think that the airlines are taking a lot of precautions at the moment of before they put aircraft back into service, they're actually doing 1-hour test flights around the UK, for example.
So carry on.
No, I was just going to say there was a famous crash in Peru where the aircraft had come out of maintenance, and I believe they had either painted the aircraft or just washed the aircraft. They had put some tape over the static ports, and that led to erroneous indications for the crew as they were climbing out of Lima. And they ended up, I think, putting that one into the water because they essentially stalled because they didn't know how fast they were going or how high they were.
So, I mean, forgive my naivety here again, and this is one of the things. Dirk saying, sorry, what was that? Dirk S was saying, introducing new PT UK carry. ask Professor Carry-On. Yeah. So I mean, clearly this system is concerning, for want of. I mean, is there not a better way that this information can be gathered? Something that's not quite so sensitive to a bug being in the tube.
Well, that's why you have 3 of them.
Right.
You know, it's a 2 or double or triple redundant system, and then at the end of the day, you've got additional. Anybody that has done an instrument rating, there's a for each maneuver there is a primary instrument, and then there are essentially a supporting cast of instruments. So if you're climbing, you'll see your airspeed decline. You'll see your vertical speed go up, and you'll see your altimeter go up. So if one of those things isn't working, that's in a general aviation airplane. If one of those things isn't working, you can still use the other 2 to figure out what the airplane is doing. But it gets, it's pretty redundant. It's pretty safe, considering the amount of flights that happen in the world. But it does happen. Airplane systems ice over, or they get messed up somehow, and
Nerd alert!
Yeah. I love it. We'll do an offline explanation of pitot-static systems.
Yeah, quite.
Nothing I'm telling you is crazy rocket science. This is, if you go for your PPL or your instrument rating, you'll learn all this stuff.
Okay.
Mila's saying in the chat room she loves these technical
chats.
chats.
Indeed. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Thanks, Armando. As I say, forgive my. This is the trouble. You read that article out, and I went, nope, not a clue.
No, it's good that you ask. It's good that you ask. Well done.
Yeah. Well, there we go. Yeah. So yeah, this is
what we pay Armando the big bucks.
We've got a last question. Is it, the GPS indicated speed is no fallback? Rakon is asking.
Absolutely. It is absolutely a viable supporting data point. I know when I fly both general aviation and for charters, I always have my iPad up with a Stratus. If my entire airplane goes dark, believe it or not, with ForeFlight, we were just talking to Sky Demon, about some of the differences. With ForeFlight and a Stratus, you can fly an airplane, and that's purely based off of GPS ground speed, which will give you a pretty good idea of what you're doing, plus or minus, especially close to the ground, plus or minus 20 knots, and the attitude and heading of the airplane. So Recon, absolutely a viable piece of information, should everything else fail.
Nerd alert!
Okay.
I love it. Yeah. So the next story is comes to us from Press and Journal, or pressandjournal.co.uk, and this is all about Loganair. Loganair here in the UK, well, they're based up in Scotland. They've received a £4 million grant, or some money from the Transport Scotland. So with the impact of COVID-19, which has decimated the aviation industry, as we all know, with airlines forced to ground planes and cancel flights as international travel has plummeted. However, flights to the Highlands and Islands are lifeline routes for countless rural communities relying on connections and vital supplies during the lockdown. Now, it can be revealed this week, Loganair has received a £4.1 million in Transport Scotland backing to stay in the air during the coronavirus pandemic. Throughout the pandemic, Loganair flights have maintained services to ensure life in rural communities can continue as normal, as well as support efforts to fight the virus. The airline has run air ambulance aircraft as well for the Scottish Air Ambulance Service to carry coronavirus patients and others to hospital. Some planes have also been adapted to handle specially designed pods for patients to reduce the infection risk, and the airline has also continued to fly mail to the islands, even adding extra flights as the volumes have increased during lockdown. So Transport Scotland has been funding a skeleton service from Loganair through the coronavirus pandemic, and the scheme is aimed to provide at least one connection to island airports, including Orkney, Shetland, Stornoway and others, to ensure communities are not cut off. The 4.1 million figure covers the length of a contract that has been running from the end of April last year, It's been hoped that the commercial operations will be able to resume again this month. However, the expected delay to the relaxation of the restrictions from the Scottish Government has led to the contract being extended to August if needed. They said that a Transport Scotland spokesperson has said that we recognise the importance of maintaining air services to our remote communities to facilitate essential travel and have funded a skeleton service through the pandemic. Now, it's safe to say that I know...
Actually, Tony S. has said there, Logan has been going from strength to strength.
Yeah, one of our good friends of the show is a pilot at Logan Air, and he's been very busy indeed.
Yeah, I bet.
So good for them. But it's good, obviously, for these people who do live in... I mean, some of the Highlands and Shetland Islands and stuff up north are quite a way out.
So, I mean, again, forgiving my naivety here, these are people... did Logan Air pick up a lot of the Flybe routes that I know were quite often funded by the government?
Yeah.
They were government backed, weren't they? Oh, these are original Logan Air flights. I'm being told
they're flying. Logan Air are used because they've obviously got a mixed fleet. They've got the Embraers, which they use for their service and stuff, but they've also got the smaller, the Britain Norman Islander, which is a small kind of twin engine prop aircraft
is it that
as
one?
Well. Which is that's the
that's a Saab 340.
Saab 340. Saab 340. They've also got a small cargo fleet as well.
Thank you, Mr. Warner, by the way.
Yeah, they've also got some ATR 42s, ATR 72s as well in their fleet. And they've also got Armando. They've got de Havilland Canada DH6 Twin Otter as well in their fleet. So one of those.
Is that the one I think that's the one that lands on the beach, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So good on them. It's good.
Yeah,
it's good to see. They're doing a good job as well, and obviously with the air ambulance side of things as well, it's always important as well.
There was an interesting email with the other project you and I are involved in. Actually, did you see that? I'll talk about that later. Okay. Okay. He would. Talk about that another time. Yes. So, there's a. Yes, next story.
So Matt, you're moving to my favourite neck of the woods.
Indeed, yes. And you did the show notes this week, so I don't know why you gave this to me. It's very kind of you. Anyway, so Malta's Air Hub Airlines adds its first A340-300. So Air Hub Airlines. GSM Malta International has taken delivery of the first A340-300 of 4 units of the type it intends to add going forward. At 16.1 years old, Foxtrot Whiskey Tango Bravo Juliet MSN 668
manufacturer's serial number.
Oh, okay, thank you. Was ferried from Amman Queen Alia to Ciaulia. How am I supposed to say that? Somebody please correct me. Okay, everybody's looking at me blankly. Okay, whatever Carlos just said, for pre-service entry maintenance on the 16th of June 2021. The aircraft was previously operated by Air Tahiti as Foxtrot Oscar Lima Oscar Victor, but was retired, parked at Teruel and deregistered in February 2019. The CH Aviation Fleet's History module shows. The current registration is temporary and as such is not listed by the French Air Traffic Register. It will, however, be re-registered in Malta as 9 Hotel Bravo Oscar Bravo and is scheduled for entry into service in the second half of July 2021. Our close operation with various aircraft owners, lessors and MROs give us unique opportunities for flexible additions of fleet in order to deploy them in different markets, Chairman Alexander Seladin said. The carrier will consider deploying the aircraft with seats removed as a makeshift freighter also. He said to CH Aviation that the other 3 A340s would deliver one by one over the next 2 months. The airline said that it had the capacity to operate at up to 10 mixed configuration aircraft by the end of 2021. So I don't really Air Hub Airlines, are they the people that own What
Yeah,
is?
so AirHub, I had done a little research because I didn't
Yeah.
know who the hell they were, even
Yeah.
though I know Malta very
And
well.
even though you're
But,
obsessed by Malta, yes.
But they
Yeah.
are a kind of, they're one of those airlines that you can ring up, tomorrow and say, I need a A340 300
bit like-
here
right.
now with a crew, and I want to go to here. And
So
I'll
a bit
do
like the High Fly thing, is it that same sort
it.
of?
Yeah, like
Yeah.
Titan as well here in the UK
Yeah.
as well.
Norwegian, I'm being told in my ear, uses them. Used to use them.
But wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Wouldn't you? I was going to say, wouldn't you say, Nev, the 340-300 is an interesting choice of aircraft
Yeah,
to start with?
it was always. I think our chum, Mr. Anderson, was always used to say it was a little bit underpowered for what it was supposed to do, but also the running costs are pretty high as well. And again, 4-engine aircraft, that needs a lot of juice, doesn't it? So yeah, but again, perhaps it's a question of what's available. That's the other thing, isn't it? Because so many airlines are switching to more efficient 2-engine aircraft these days. So yeah.
And John's just held his hand up to stitching me up because he's moved the order around because the next one's got pictures in it. You see.
There we go.
There we go.
So, Nev, you've got the next story, Nev, and it's all about a very special livery.
Yeah, it's a nice story, this actually. It's on simpleflying.com, and it says that Southwest Airlines has painted one of its Boeing 737-800 aircraft in a new Freedom 1 livery. The aircraft, stylised with the flag of the United States of America, is designed as a tribute to the armed forces in the US and the company's gratefulness to those who have served. The livery was revealed to the airline's employees during the celebration at Southwest Airlines Technical Operations Hangar at William P. Hobby International Airport in Houston, Texas. Attendees included Southwest military ambassadors, military council, winners of the company's prestigious President's Award, and others. Southwest military ambassadors are employees who are veterans and military spouses. The special plane features 50 stars and 13 stripes. This is the first 737-800 to join the airline's special livery collection. Others have been on the 737-700s and include Arizona 1, California 1, Colorado 1, Florida 1, Illinois 1, Lone Star 1, Texas, Louisiana 1, Maryland 1, Missouri 1, Nevada 1, New Mexico 1, and Tennessee 1. Southwest Airlines also surprised its active employees. It's offering a gift of 50,000 rapid rewards points deposited into the accounts of each employee who chooses to accept the gift. Gary Kelly, who's CEO of Southwest Airlines, stated the following on the livery: "Our purpose is to connect people to what's important in their lives through friendly, reliable and low-cost air travel. We simply couldn't fulfill our purpose if it was not for the sacrifices and dedication of our military men and women. We appreciate their service and bravery in providing a blanket of freedom for our country." That's a very nice story, and it just, I'm sure Armando can relate to this. Every time I've been through a US airport and there's been military personnel at the gate waiting to get on the aircraft, very often they are given priority boarding, which is great. But most importantly, the gate staff and anyone that's around, even regular passengers, they say, "Thank you for your service." And we do not do that in the United Kingdom.
We don't, no.
And I do not know why we don't do it, but it is a standard greeting of thanks in the US, and it feels very humbling. I'm so pleased that they do it as well.
Armando.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Nev. Oh, I'm teared up a little bit. No, it is really nice. People go into the military for a myriad of reasons, and it's always a little awkward when somebody is thanking you for your service, and whether you're in the military or first responder, we are really good about that here in the United States. And a company like Southwest Airlines has a long history of supporting the armed forces, whether that be in combat operations. Captain Jeff has talked about the Civil Reserve Air Fleet. When we get the call as the U.S. military, often you're on a Delta Airlines jet or an American Airlines jet or a Southwest Airlines jet going somewhere very quickly. But in addition to that, they're always great companies to go work for post-military career. And that if you serve 2 years, you've already gained some valuable skills that will benefit both the company and the passengers. Or if you serve 20 years and you get out and go work for them, you have a very unique skill set that, we're losing a lot of trade schools and vocational schools here in the U.S. It's just not as common as it used to be. So the military is a great way for people to develop both personal, interpersonal, and technical skills that companies love having as part of their team. And Southwest Airlines is just one of these companies that has always been very friendly towards veterans. And this is a great paint job. Although I've always really liked the New Mexico paint job. That's my favorite. But this one's nice too.
Yeah, I mean, in our, if I could sort of maybe in defence of the United Kingdom and where we are very good at remembrance. I do feel we're good at that. So I accept that perhaps lessons can be learned in terms of respect. I think that's probably the best word, isn't it? Respect. But we are very good at remembering our fallen, I feel.
Oh yeah, I've said that every November. I commend the UK on the way you guys conduct your Remembrance Day ceremonies, the way each town has a very special tie to both the men and women that served and the experiences that they went through. And it's very much a different experience because you guys lived it. You lived it day to day. Everyone in Europe went through some very challenging times while we were supporting it from our end, at least World War II. But you guys do that very well at remembering.
Tony S is saying, Armando, is it usual for off-duty service personnel to travel in uniform? I think it's discouraged here.
Not as much. So before 9/11, on-duty travel was often in uniform. Off-duty travel, we're very rarely would you do that in uniform. You're not in an official capacity, and you certainly, nobody wants to take advantage of the gratitude that is expressed towards veterans. So you're not going to take advantage of it for personal travel.
Yeah.
Now, there's an ulterior motive, Nev, to the crew having active duty military board in a category, priority 1 or category 1 or whatever you want to call it, group 1. And it's a security thing that tells the crew when group 1 is boarding exactly who those capable people are that they're going to turn to in the event of an emergency. And I'm not talking, sure, terrorism being the extreme, but even just a very simple emergency where they have to, they would need a medical emergency, or they just need to evacuate the aircraft quickly. That it helps the military members out, because usually we're packing so much stuff. Oh my gosh, like I usually have to go on there with 4 bags, and there's a baggage waiver for me to go on there. So it's great for me to have some room, but it helps the crew out and identify those individuals that are trained in critical thinking in stressful situations, and they take note of that, of where those individuals are sitting.
Yeah.
So Armando, we're going to stick with you for the next story and stay over in the US, and this is American Airlines.
Yeah, speaking of American Airlines, so they canceled hundreds of flights through at least mid-July as the company is striving to maintain service in the midst of this massively increasing travel demand while the coronavirus pandemic continues to recede in the United States. That's according to a spokesperson from the airline. They said the first few weeks of June have brought unprecedented weather to our largest hubs, heavily impacting our operation and causing delays, canceling flights, disruptions to crew member schedules, and our customers' plans. That, combined with labor shortages some of our vendors are contending with, and the incredibly quick ramp up for customer demand, has led us to build an additional resilience and certainty to our operation by adjusting a fraction of our scheduled flying through mid-July. So these targeted cancellations, they add up to about hundreds of flights through mid-July. On Saturday, American Airlines had 120 cancellations, and the company is projecting 50 to 80 cancellations per day going forward here through the near future. Now, industries across the country have struggled to hire employees as the economy attempts to return to a pre-pandemic normal. Now, customers who have been booked through July 15th will be notified or have already received notifications and if their flights have been canceled, so they can make those travel adjustments in advance. That's according to the airline. They also said that cancellations will be spread throughout its system to minimize the impact in a single area, although there will be a bigger effect at Dallas-Fort Worth, which is American Airlines' biggest hub. And even just earlier today, I was talking to Megan, and the CEO of Frontier Airlines said, hey, if you see a deal, scoop it up, because for all the same reasons that American Airlines is having to cancel their flights, they're going to face some staff shortages in the next couple months. So yeah, there you go. That's I guess part of coming back from this downturn that we had.
Yeah. So the next story, this one comes to us from Flight Global, and this is all about Embraer. And it's good news if you're a fan of their aircraft, because Embraer are hopeful of a turboprop launch in 2022, commercial aviation chief said. So the Embraer is pressing ahead with its plans for a new turboprop airliner and is eyeing a program launch next year. Aljan Maya, chief executive of Embraer Commercial Aviation, says the airframer has been more and more vocal in recent months over its intentions for the market. Embraer is still very much focused on the segment, and we're still working on a turboprop and hope to launch the program in 2022. He told a webinar today to celebrate the first delivery of E195-E2 to Helvetic Airways. Last year, Embraer showed updated renderings of its design that now shares the same fuselage cross-sections as its current E-Jet family. Service entry is likely to be around 2027-2028 timeframe, he says, and it will really stand apart from other products out there today. Maya says Embraer has also selected the turboprop as the platform of the future, allowing it to be allowing it to add more sustainable solutions to later iterations, he said. That does not imply that the airframer is moving away from jets, but that it views the turboprop as an ideal fit for new power or propulsion technologies. I mean, and let's be honest as well, with the way things are at the moment, short-haul trips and stuff between various places in Europe and here in the UK are going to be more and more popular, and are popular now. So, to make these small hops, it's obviously going to be a lot more cheaper to have a prop aircraft, on these routes. What do you think, Nev?
It's beautiful. I love the look of it.
It's nice, isn't it? Yeah, I agree. I think... Of course, the other thing is that I'm a big fan of regional operations like this, and I think that to being able to operate an aircraft inexpensively over shortish distances, I think is a great thing. Although, as our final story might suggest, some of those distances can be too short.
This is right up your alley, this story, Matt. Beans, you are a resident ex-coach driver.
Well, I'm not an ex-coach driver.
Well,
I'm just, I'm I don't know, coach driver in waiting. Is that the word? I don't know. Anyway, slightly unusual story this, and the headline from airliners.de: Lufthansa replaces its shortest route with a bus service.
Not an Airbus.
I see what you did there.
Yeah.
Lufthansa is ending its shortest route connecting Nuremberg to Munich. According to Google Maps, the 68-mile as the crow flies route between the two airports takes 1 hour and 38 minutes across 167 kilometres. That's 100 miles by car. According to airliners.de, the route will be replaced with a bus service between the two airports. The Lufthansa Express bus will take 2.25 hours to connect the cities, according to Aero Telegraph. Before the pandemic, Lufthansa offered up to 4 daily round trips between Nuremberg and Munich. The connection was used almost exclusively by transit passengers who switched to international flights in Munich, as an analysis by airliners.de from 2019 has shown. I mean, sure. I mean, my big issue here is just like, I mean, realistically, if it's 68 miles, how long will that have taken in an aircraft?
Oh, 10 minutes?
Yeah.
I was going to say.
Yeah, I was going to say, okay, obviously it's going to be one of those flights where it takes far longer to check in. Mind you, I suppose if it's a transit flight, then of course you haven't got all that check-in stuff, have you? Because it'll be transited from the aircraft.
You still got to be there an hour before and all that, you know. It's
What, even on a transition?
Well, sometimes, yes. I remember, if you can remember the days of when we used to book our, this is before the internet probably as well, we used to book our airfares through travel agents, even our business travel I did through that. And I was given a book of tickets. I was going to various places in Europe, and there was a flight that was from Brussels to Antwerp. Now, this is not a very long distance at all. I thought this is going to be a seriously short flight. But it was the book of those, tear out tickets that you used to have. So I've turned up at Brussels airport at a ridiculously early time, and I couldn't see the Antwerp flight on there at all. It was just nowhere to be seen.
No.
It was ridiculous. So I went to see the ticket lady. She said, "Oh no, it's a train. It's not a plane you've got there. It's a train." But it was on an airline style ticket.
Right.
So I kind of assumed I was getting on a plane.
Yeah.
But no, that was on a train, I have to say.
Which
is
would
about a
still,
45-minute trip on the train.
frankly, would have been an awful lot faster than, and I love my buses, don't get me wrong, but if it's taking, what did it say there? That it was going to take 1 hour 38 minutes by car, but if you go by the bus, it's the much faster option, not of 2.25 hours to connect the two cities. I mean, you say, and that is a serious factor. If you've then got to be, you've still got to be at your other connecting flight within 2 hours or whatever in order to get your, in order to be sure to get your ticket and stuff. I mean, what happens if there's traffic? I mean, I don't know.
Well, you can't fly over it, that's for sure.
Well, no, quite, indeed.
Even if you are in an Airbus.
Indeed.
Anyway.
Yes, there we go. There's nothing I can say to that. Next.
So that brings the commercial news segment to a close, guys and girls. Thank you for that. Well done this week. And moving on to our next part of the show, which is all about the social medias. So for those of you guys and girls who follow us on social medias, especially Facebook, will know that every Wednesday we pop a little picture up for our Caption This Just for Fun. Now this week, because Armando is back with us, we have run a military special picture for this week's said Caption This, and we had again this week lots of interest in this particular picture. I'm not quite sure. We'll have to ask Armando which particular jet this is, but this particular jet in question is flying above the sea at probably 10 feet.
I'm gonna stop your stream right now.
Oh my!
That's a F-14.
Yeah, that's
It's an
what I
F-14
said. I
Tomcat.
said F-14. Yeah.
Okay.
Matt just pulled my mic down when I said that. You see.
I didn't touch nothing.
Anyways,
don't blame me.
go on, Carlos.
Yeah, you're
So
on your
this, for those of you listening to the audio podcast, this picture shows an F-14 military F-14 flying above the sea.
Many man points have been lost
round
for
about
that. You realise that, don't you?
feet. And trailing from this F-14 is a guy on a ski or water skis.
One mustn't make assumptions.
Or guy or girl.
Absolutely.
Or it could be a dog. Alfie could be on there on the skis. It's an interesting picture. I will say that.
Mr. Warner said, "I'm disappointed that you don't know what this is. I bet even Matt knows. I'd love to be able to say yes to that, Jonathan, and join in on the fun, but I really can't. I really can't. Anyway, come on.
So we've had some answers in, and I'm going to kick things off. This one's from John, and John says Coast Guard trial, fast response winch operator, or as it's now called, dope on a rope training.
Right, okay. Richard says, and there's me thinking Jet Ski Airways was the new Russian airline.
Ooh, I like that one.
Go on,
Absolutely.
Nev, do you want to take Stuart?
Stuart says, to quote co-host Matt to Carlos, bet you can't do that in X-Plane.
I bet you can't. I bet you can't.
Armando.
Kevin says, I booked a jet ski ride, not a bloody ski with a jet.
I see what you did there. David says Baywatch 2021 style. Yeah.
Go on, Nev. You take this one from James. That's
Yeah, James says British tourists are going to extreme lengths to avoid quarantine rules when returning from holidays in red list countries.
Matt says, not our Matt, but another Matt here says, when the research budget into formation wake surfing for fuel saving gets a bit out of hand.
Wow. Okay. Nev, I think you should take this one.
You're going to have to take the next one because my OneNote thing is just decided to...
Splendid. So Neil says, due to social distancing, the pilot and navigator must be at least 2 metres apart at all times.
Jake here says, the Navy's new display for 2021 air shows, the kamikaze jet ski.
Armando?
Daryl sends in, I feel the need for speed.
Indeed. And Paul says, quite simply, because I was inverted.
No, Paul actually sent in a picture, which he's doctored
Oh,
of our
I
caption
see.
list to
Right.
go with his quote, because I was inverted. So if Matt's going to put that, there we go, on the screen for those of you watching this.
What on earth happened there? I mean, that's certainly subpar flying, is it not?
I mean, I'm surprised with how the jet wash is kind of,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, right. So we've got some comments coming from the chat room here. You never know, Richard Adams saying, you never know what you'll catch if you drop your hook in too early. I like that. That's my favourite.
Tony
one.
S says, that's Maverick at the controls. Probably from the new movie.
What new movie? Is there one?
Yeah, there is one coming. Mayman Micah says his caption would be, faster, Dad, faster.
That would,
Micah driving.
Yeah, definitely.
that would be the ultimate in, like, you know, fun for if you got kids. You know, oh, come on, have a go on the.
I mean, clearly you're not a parent. I mean, Armando's, you know, probably the most chilled out person here when it comes to sort of, you know, risks and parenting. But
I'd love to see if you could hang on
I'm not
at
entirely
that
sure
speed.
jet skiing off a jet is, or you know, or what am I? Water skiing off a jet. You know, I mean, come on.
So I do believe there is a video out there of I think it's either an Icon A5 or a Sea Ray towing a wakeboarder, towing a water skier.
Okay, John, you need to find that before the end of the show. You need to have found that. Yeah. Okay, there we go. Right,
that's your next your project for next week, Armando. when you're next in the jump plane, we want you to do some
absolutely
serious
not.
skiing,
no,
jet skiing.
Can we do something else now, please?
Surely nobody around here that works in a 3-letter agency called the FAA would notice at all.
No, nobody would spot a thing at all.
Oh dear!
Wow.
If Armando's not here next week, guys and girls,
right? He's been arrested. That's why.
So, moving on to the next part of the show, Armando, I thought we'd hand things over to you.
Well, I'm going to let the video and the audio speak for itself. We've been talking a lot about DC-3s over the past couple months. So, Matt, if you're ready, let's play this out. If you're listening to the audio version of the show, head on over to our YouTube channel and check out this video that we're playing out. Now, if you're a show supporter via Patreon or PayPal, you're going to receive a link with some additional footage that isn't included in the regular show. Now, in this video, you're going to see a progression for what we here in the US is called a type rating in this particular aircraft. Now, other countries use the term type rating for aircraft-specific training that may not be required here in the U.S. Now, that's unless the aircraft is 12,500 pounds or more, and there's a few other exceptions and stipulations. But really, most of the time, we only need a category and class certificate, such as airplane single-engine land or airplane multi-engine land. Now, that doesn't mean the insurance carrier may not require different training requirements. Now, this particular training was for a second-in-command type rating in the DC-3T, or 8-turbine DC-3. Now, there are a few manufacturers that converted the DC-3,
Some were Professional Aviation, Braddock Air Services in South Africa, but the most well-known is probably Basler Turbine Conversions. They're up in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. To this day, Basler owns the type certificate for the DC-3T. Now, for our purposes, when we talk about the DC-3, we include all variants of the DC-3. Now, that's the DC-3, the C-47, C-41, C-17, or C-117, the C-53, the R-4D, and of course the BT-67, which we're flying in this video. Now, this also includes the Lizunov Li-2 and the PS-84, which were Soviet-made DC-3s. They were made in Moscow, and believe it or not, almost 5,000 of them were made. Now, going back a little bit in history, DC stands for Douglas Commercial. DC-3 was the culmination of a development effort that began after an inquiry from Transcontinental and Western Airlines, or TWA. That was to Donald Douglas. TWA's rival in transcontinental air service, United Airlines, was actually starting service with the Boeing 247, and Boeing refused to sell any 247s to any other airlines until United's order for 60 aircraft had been filled. So TWA asked Douglas to design and build an aircraft that would allow TWA to compete with United Airlines. Now, Douglas's design, which was the DC-1 in 1933, was promising. That led to the DC-2 in 1934. The DC-2 was a success, but there was room for improvement. Now, the DC-3 specifically resulted from this telephone call between American Airlines CEO C.R. Smith to Donald Douglas, when Smith persuaded a reluctant Douglas to design a sleeper aircraft based on that DC-2 to replace some of Americans' older airplanes. The DC-2's cabin was 66 inches wide, which was just a little bit too narrow for side-by-side berths. Douglas decided to go ahead with the development only after Smith informed him of Americans' intention to buy at least 20 aircraft. This new aircraft was engineered by Arthur Raymond over the next 2 years, and actually the prototype was called the DST, the Douglas Sleeper Transport, and that first flew in December of 1935. Now, this airplane with Douglas Chief Test Pilot Carl Cover at the controls, it first flew actually on December 17th, 1935, which was the 32nd anniversary of the Wright brothers' first flight at Kitty Hawk. Now, this cabin was 92 inches wide, had a version with 21 seats instead of the 14 to 16 sleeping berths of the DST, and this airplane was given the designation the DC-3. Now, believe it or not, there was no prototype for the DC-3. The first ever DC-3 built followed 7 DSTs off the production line and went straight to American Airlines. So total production of the DC-3, including all military variants, was an astounding 16,079. As of today, almost 400 of those still remain in commercial service. Now, there were 607 civil variants of the DC-3 built, but there were 10,048 military C-47s and C-53s built in Santa Monica, California, and Long Beach, and Oklahoma City. That included the R-4Ds. Now, 4,937 were built in the Soviet Union, as we mentioned earlier, as the Lizunov Li-2. Now, that actually started as a PS-84, or passenger airplane number 84. And this is a little known fact, 487 were developed by or constructed by Mitsubishi Kinsei aircraft in Japan between 1939 and 1945. Now, this particular airplane that we're flying in the video, this is actually a C-47. It was serial number 13342. It was a C-47A that came out of Oklahoma City in 1944. This particular aircraft went to the U.S. Army, but it was quickly transferred to the Royal Canadian Air Force, where it served in and around Saskatoon until 1970. It then went to Atlas Aviation as a cargo hauler. That's when it was issued its first civilian airworthiness certificate. It stayed with another company in Sault Ste. Marie. There, believe it or not, it was actually leased to a company, Tropical Air Services, in Barbados for years. So it went from Canada to Barbados. But while in Canada, it served with Atlas, Airedale, Great Northern Freight, Enterprise Air, and Triumph Airways all the way up until 2010. Now, in 2012, Basler Turbo Conversions took hold of this aircraft and began its conversion process. 5 years later, it went on and served with a company called AirTech. Now, this aircraft does, or this company does, geophysical surveys, and actually, this aircraft was on skis and flew, I think, to both poles, but I know certainly it went to Antarctica because there's some great pictures out on the internet on it. Now, let's talk a little bit about the Basler conversion itself. Basler conversion gets a new cockpit, it gets a fuselage stretch, new wingtips, new nacelles, new fuel tanks, gets about 800 gallons of jet fuel. It has structural reinforcements, and of course, probably the most famous modification is getting Pratt & Whitney PT6-67 turbine engines. So that removes the old radial engines. Now, according to Basler, what this gets you is low acquisition costs, low operation costs, heavy payload capability, excellent short field capability. It's quiet. This aircraft, as opposed to the original DC-3, is certified for known ice. This gets modern avionics. It gets additional conversion options. Now, if you just Google the BT-67, you're going to find all kinds of different modifications. And we'll talk about some of the missions a little bit later, but there's some really cool pictures out there. Now, compared to the original DC-3, this aircraft gets 35% more interior volume, 43% more useful load, 24% more speed, 100% more fuel capacity, lower stall speeds, and lower approach speeds, which I gotta admit was pretty nice when you're coming over the fence at about 85 miles per hour or so. Now, the BT-67 itself, as a turbine DC-3, they've got so many missions out there. They've done Antarctic and Arctic flights. They do executive transport, maritime patrols, smoke jumpers, cloud seeding, believe it or not. I believe that's with the Thai Air Force. They do firefighting, medical evacuations. They do some military special operations. They use them as general cargo aircraft, of course, up north. I think in Canada, Ken Borick and some other cargo operators. The U.S. government has used them for drug interdiction programs. They do geophysical survey, like I talked about, environmental research, insect control, many targets. They could go on. Now, some of the operators of the BT-67, now there's about 70 aircraft out there, and that's just the Basler ones. That's not counting some of the other manufacturers that have converted them. But here in the U.S., there's quite a few airplanes operating in paratrooper training, oil spill cleanup, environmental research. But some of the coolest missions are actually out in Africa. The Mauritanian Air Force, the Malian Air Force, they use them as military transports for people and personnel. There's companies in South Africa that are using them for survey missions. And then, like we mentioned, up in Canada, Ken Borick Air and Cargo North, CGG, they are operating them for both polar operations, some environmental research stuff, and then some like just straight up cargo operations. Now, one of the coolest missions that this airplane does as a turbine DC-3 is the Colombian Air Force. If you Google the AC-47, now that airplane is a turbine DC-3 outfitted with intelligence and surveillance systems, as well as some guns sticking out the side to take care of some counterinsurgency operations and some police missions out there. And speaking of police, the Colombian National Police also has a couple BT-67s. Let's see, what else? The El Salvadorian Air Force, the Guatemalan Air Force, Ecuadorian Air Force, all operate them as cargo aircraft. And then, like we said, the Thai Air Force does firebombing and cloud seeding with them. Now, this airplane was an absolute dream to fly. It was super easy to fly. It was challenging in some crosswinds, but if you want to see some of the training videos themselves, head on over to Patreon or PayPal and give a little bit of a donation to the show. It doesn't have to be much, but you're going to get a link, like I said earlier, to some of the training videos with a wonderful instructor that I had from Basler Turbo Conversions themselves. But here you go, guys. That's just a little bit of history and current operations for the aircraft that I'm flying for this company.
All right. Well, there you go. That is a little bit of DC-3 flying for you guys.
I don't think you have to go down the gym as much, really, would you? Because that's quite a workout in the cockpit.
You definitely, the chat room was talking about that too. Yeah, you definitely throw around one. There was one particular thing that was called they called it the Basler shuffle or something like that, which is as soon as you land in a crosswind, you end up with your one hand on top of the other hand, and you have to still like switch the grip on the yoke, and then reach over to the throttle quadrant because you're going to go into beta and reverse, and then you end up with your bottom hand on top, and the yoke is 180 degrees upside down because you're using adverse yaw to keep the airplane straight while going into reverse in the PT6. So it's definitely a hands-on airplane, but I wouldn't say it was I'm gonna jinx myself. It wasn't particularly challenging. It was just active.
Indeed, it's incredible. Thank you for sharing that, though, Armando. Such a cool experience.
Tony S in the
share
chat
with
room
us. Yeah, absolutely.
He says he saw a Dakota at Duxford a few weeks ago. Beautiful sight and sound.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, as much as I love this airplane, you got to admit the radial engines, just like it's sitting here behind me, there is just a particular sound. And a couple weeks before I flew this airplane, I was flying that Stearman. So a radial engine in open cockpit is even better, but there's just no replacement for that kind of sound. But
no.
Hey, so our producer John is an amazing individual, and he has managed to find a couple actual videos of people water skiing behind airplanes. So I believe this first one is from an AirCam, which is a twin engine float plane with an open cockpit. And Matt, if you've got the video, go ahead and play it out.
Okay, that broke. That's good. We'll try that again, shall we? I mean, wow.
Let's see.
No water skiing there.
So I'm not sure this is... So there's a different kind of water skiing. This is perhaps not what we were shooting for. Oh, there we go.
There we go. This is it. Here we go. Look, way. This is absolutely ridiculous. So describe this. So this is So what's the plane that's doing the towing here?
So this is a Cub or some version of a Cub. It could be a carbon Cub or something like that. But there is actually somebody water skiing. I mean, they're probably tied to the tail hook or the what do you call it? The tow hook for banner towing. Glider towing.
I mean, the irony of the fact that there was a boat alongside them travelling at the same speed. And that was from Glorified Unbreakable, apparently. Now, we've got a second video here, which is Hummer Hump Day is the description on this one. And Joe is water skiing behind a plane. So here we go with this one. And this is a little seaplane by the look of it.
Yeah, so this is a Maul. It's either a Maul M4 or M5, I think, on floats. And this gentleman, first of all, the water looks beautiful, doesn't it?
It does, yes, absolutely. It never looks like that here in the UK. Yeah, absolutely. This is crazy. I mean, people are just doing this for the sake of it, though, right? I mean, like, you know, this is an ad for a brewing company. Apparently, we're being told in our ears here. A Shorts brewing company, which is just crazy. I mean, I did do water skiing, actually, believe it or not. This will be a shock to a lot of people, but I actually did go water skiing, and the idea of being towed by an aeroplane, frankly, is terrifying, absolutely terrifying. Anyway, well done, John. In the time that we had that segment, videos were located and downloaded. So a little polite round of applause,
well done,
I think,
John.
for our producer.
Well done.
Thank you. Right, okay. Armando, we have some important stuff to do.
Yeah, so I don't think we've hit our acronym limit for the day, so I'm going to go ahead and throw some in there. If you guys are ready for some military, let's do it.
Let's do it indeed. All
right. Let's see. This first story comes to us from military.com.
The United States Air Force believes that it can sustain and upgrade 92 of its oldest C-130 military transports, even as it aims to downsize the overall Hercules fleet over the next couple years. That's according to top military brass. During a Senate Armed Services Air-Land subcommittee on Tuesday, the Air Force reiterated its budget plans to reduce the C-130 fleet to 255 aircraft in the near future from about 300 that it currently has. Of those 255, 163 would be the newer J models that the Air Force already has or are on order from Lockheed Martin. That's according to the Deputy Chief of Staff for Plans and Programs in the Air Force. And he added that 92 older H model aircraft could receive necessary modifications to keep them viable in flying. He first disclosed these figures at a House Armed Services Subcommittee on Sea Power and Projection earlier this month. Now, the service also maintains that some special mission C-130s, such as the EC-130 Airborne Communications Jamming Aircraft and the LC-130 Ski-Bird, which I think is operated by the New York Air National Guard. That airplane can land on ice and snow for Antarctic missions. It's not immediately clear how these aircraft would be affected by the potential downsizing. However, in fiscal year 2022, in their budget, the Air Force is already looking to mothball 20 of the oldest C-130s H models, which includes 2 EC-130s, those are the Compass Call aircraft, and 5 MC-130H Special Operations aircraft. So venerable aircraft, but I think they're probably seeing that the J model is so much more powerful and so much more efficient that when you put them side by side with the older H models, I don't think there's much of a comparison. So there you go. And the J models are bigger too. They're longer than the traditional H models, so they can fit an extra pallet in there.
There we go.
As you do.
As we do. So this next one comes to us from edition.cnn.com. US warplanes fly first combat missions off foreign aircraft carrier since World War II. So United States Marine Corps fighter jets aboard a British aircraft carrier flew combat missions over the Middle East this week. The first time US warplanes have gone into combat from a foreign warship since World War II. The United Kingdom's Ministry of Defence said this week, and the missions against ISIS also marked the first combat for Britain's new aircraft carrier HMS Queen Elizabeth, the largest ship in the Royal Navy has ever put to sea, and the first combat action for a British aircraft carrier in a decade. Captain James Blackmore, commander of the air wing aboard the Queen Elizabeth, said the last time US planes flew combat missions from a foreign aircraft carrier was in 1943, when American planes deployed from Britain's HMS Victorious in the South Pacific. This one, the US F-35B jets flying against ISIS, were joined by similar warplanes in support of the UK's Operation Shader and US military Operation Inherent Resolve. A total of 18 US and UK F-35Bs are embarked aboard the 65,000-ton Queen Elizabeth, the largest number of the advanced warplanes ever deployed on one ship. The Queen Elizabeth is leading the UK's Carrier Strike Group 21, which is on a 7-month 30,000 mile or 48,280 kilometre mission that will take it as far as Japan and South Korea, including an expected transit of the South China Seas. So good news. Obviously this particular aircraft carrier from the UK did take a little while to get to where it is now due to certain issues with water egress, or ingress I should say, onto the ship, but it's good to see that it's finally doing what it should be doing and deploying aircraft from the seas. But it's good as well, Armando, to see that you guys are getting used to flying off a real man's aircraft carrier.
Oh, careful.
Well, yeah, I'm sure those initial troubles are just, water under the bridge, but
yeah.
No, this is incredibly important for both countries, because as you guys are on your shakedown cruise of this aircraft carrier, you're getting the experience of the Marine aviators, and vice versa. The F-35s, the US F-35s, are probably getting a great dose of English breakfasts and tea, and why on earth you would eat baked beans with your fried eggs, and I'm kidding, I miss it.
but yeah, it's an incredible learning experience for everyone involved, and I can only imagine that these folks after 7 months are probably going to end up being lifelong friends.
I bet they're enjoying their smoked bacon as well.
Indeed.
Yeah.
And apparently this particular aircraft is the USMC F35B that Mr. Warner's just sent us.
Yep.
There we go. Literally hot off the presses.
And that boy, honestly, he's so good.
I know,
Mr. Warner.
absolutely. Yeah, it's... I just somehow we need access to his library, but much quicker.
Well, as long as we remain friends with him, we will have access.
Well, good
it.
point.
Exactly.
Good point. Well made. Absolutely. If he keeps doctoring photos like he did last week, then that beautiful friendship could come to an end very
my
quickly. But
word.
anyway,
So, Nev, we're going on to some different kind of powered aircraft.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, to see how much new technology is being employed in military sectors now. This is on the interestingengineering.com website, and it says that Virginia-based hybrid electric aircraft firm Electra has signed a contract with the US Air Force to develop its hybrid electric propulsion systems for electric ultra-short takeoff and landing aircraft, the company announced in a press statement. The Phase 2 Small Business Innovation Research contract awarded by the US Air Force is directly aimed at shortening the time to market for advanced commercial aviation technologies. Electra is thrilled to be working in tandem with the US Air Force and its innovative Agility Prime team to accelerate the tech transition of eSTOL into the commercial marketplace, said Ben Marchiona, who's Electra's Director of Technology and Innovation. These next-gen low-carbon systems will solve several critical defence-related capability gaps whilst leveraging affordable commercial marketplace solutions, he continued. Electra's unique selling point is an aircraft that leverages a distributed hybrid electric propulsion and blown lift to take off in less than 150 feet. Electra's blown lift technology sees the aircraft electric motor-driven propellers blow air over its wings, allowing takeoff speed below 30 miles an hour and cruising speeds of up to 200 miles an hour. In a separate statement, Electric said the aircraft is designed to carry up to 7 passengers and a pilot as far as 500 miles whilst operating out of areas shorter than a soccer field, including rooftops and parking lots. Electra's aircraft will use a turbo generator to power 8 electric motors and charge a custom battery during flight. The propulsion system produces 150 kilowatts of electrical power and features a small gas turbine as well as a gearbox, generator, rectifier, control system and software. The company said it plans to perform ground tests this year before conducting flight tests in 2022. Electra hopes to release its first commercial aircraft, which should carry 7 passengers and a pilot for up to 500 miles by 2026. This is very interesting, isn't it? Using blown lift technology for ultra short takeoff, Armando. That's is this the first time this sort of technique has been used, do you think, or have other people tried this before?
No, believe it or not, I think almost every aircraft has well, at least propeller aircraft has a certain amount of lift produced by airflow over the airfoil. Now that can be calculated. It's incredibly noticeable when you lose an engine and you realize that that airflow over the wing is not there and the other one is still there and the airplane wants to roll to the left or the right. But it's a concept that's been around, but they are capitalizing on that airflow for this particular aircraft.
Yeah, interesting. Great.
Let's see. We'll go to the next story. This is about EAA's AirVenture 2021, which we continue to talk about. Now, that's only about a month away now. Oshkosh will play a host to a powerful collection of U.S. Air Force and U.S. Navy military aircraft this summer. Oshkosh AirVenture 2021 is scheduled for July 26th through August 1st. Now, we already talked about the Air Force Special Operations Command attending, and they're scheduled to be one of the title exhibitors for AirVenture. Other miscellaneous military jets and helicopters will be traveling to Oshkosh either to fly in for the daily air shows or be on static display. So the initial list is out, and here are some of the aircraft that you're going to see at Oshkosh. So A-10s will be performing close air support demonstrations during the air show. The F-16 Viper demo team will be performing their air show. Desert Storm 30th anniversary aircraft. Can you believe it's already been 30 years? So that's going to be F-15Cs, F-15Es, F-16s, Apaches, Blackhawks, Chinooks. They're all going to be on static display. F-18s, EA-18s. On static, there's going to be a C-17, a KC-135. A U-2 is going to do a flyover. One of my favorite aircraft in the world, the Airbus A400M from the Luftwaffe is going to be on static display. So again, head out to Oshkosh this summer. It's going to be a great show, great comeback. But mentioning F-16s, I love our chat room. Thank you, Mylan, the chat room. F-16s, Dutch F-16s just flew their final farewell tour. I'm not going to attempt to pronounce the name of the route, but a group of fighter jets, F-16 fighter jets, flew this famous route on Tuesday morning information as the aircraft are being replaced by the F-35. So go on social media, and there's some pretty cool pictures of those Dutch F-16s making their farewell tour.
Oh, sad. It is sad.
I remember the Dutch F-16 guys at REINSTATED were a blast to hang out with.
I bet they were.
Yeah, they're the ones who had the music at the end of the day going, and there's beers everywhere.
Oh dear, what a shame.
The Dutch C-130, I can't remember if it was a J model, but the Dutch C-130 has a pallet roll-on bar and disco. It's got a disco light. It's got speakers, the whole deal. They literally winch it off the airplane onto the ground, and I think on the inside they have another pallet full of
Do you know,
kegs of beer.
We essentially got to know you like 1 year too late, didn't we, Armando? This is the harsh reality of the stories that you tell here. We got to know you like literally 1 year too late, didn't we?
Well, you know what? We're making up for lost time now.
No, I know, but oh my goodness me, what an experience though. I mean, you must miss stuff. I mean, you know, you've got a great life outside of the military and stuff, but I mean, stuff like that you must really miss.
Absolutely. I mean, but you know what? I'm really, really happy that there are young guys that have that opportunity now. And trust me, they, especially now after the pandemic and everybody's been sort of on lockdown, those guys are going to take full advantage of the perks provided to them at air shows all over the world from every Air Force, not just the U.S. Air Force.
Yeah, indeed. Amen to that.
So, Armando, you got the last one, which is a really nice story, actually, for the last one.
Yeah, so this is, we were talking about the UK and remembrance. A Battle of Britain hero's nephew took to the skies in a hurricane to pay tribute to his uncle who was shot down and killed. David Carruthers sat in the rear seat of a converted Second World War fighter as it took off from Biggin Hill in a moving memorial to Flight Lieutenant Ian Muirhead. The Flight Lieutenant Muirhead, he was a 27-year-old RAF pilot who died when his Hurricane crashed into a field in Hempstead near Gillingham on October 15th, 1940. The sound of the Hurricane engine operated by the Biggin Hill Heritage Hangar filled the skies above Kent again as David set off on a commemorative flight yesterday. He said, "It's very daunting to go up in an 80-year-old airplane, but it looks in beautiful condition. They're absolutely magnificent machines. It really does make me feel connected to Ian. I never sat in a Hurricane before, so I can't imagine feeling any closer to him. It's absolutely great." Now, Ian joined the RAF when he was 16 years old in 1929 as an aircraft apprentice fitter. And by the start of the war, he had trained as a pilot in 1936, joining 151 Squadron before being transferred to 605 Squadron. Early in the war, Ian served at Wick in Scotland, protecting the skies around the naval base. And from there, he moved over to RAF Hawking, and he was sent into the Battle of France, with Ian receiving a Distinguished Flying Cross for his bravery during that campaign. He was shot down near Ostend, but managed to scramble back to port, boarding the SS Abukir, which was torpedoed and sunk, leaving Ian stranded in the water for 5 hours before being picked up and making it home. After a few weeks in hospital, recovering from his injuries, he was back up in the skies. But his final mission came on October 15th when he was shot down for a third time. He was hit by a Messerschmitt Me-109
near Maidstone and landed at Speke's Bottom in Hempstead, where he was unable to bail out and died near his aircraft. The flight and memorial stone erected in the field where Ian crashed was organized by Spitfire author Greg Davis, who lives in Hempstead just minutes away from where the hurricane came down. It was unveiled on Remembrance Day last year, but due to COVID restrictions, only Greg and fellow organizer Mike Fry were able to attend. So I'm glad that these guys were able to honor him this week.
Actually, it's worth noting, Armando, on that story that particular aircraft there at Biggin Hill, you can have a 30-minute flight in that aircraft, and you get obviously the flight in the aircraft covering sort of the local area, and it will cost you for 30 minutes £2,950, which is around $4,000 for 30 minutes.
Yeah. Not all hope is not lost, because keep your eyes on social media. I know last year the British Aerobatics Academy ran a raffle, and I believe it was £100 per raffle ticket for a 30-minute flight in that aircraft. So if you look around, you may get it for £100 or so,
which is well and truly worth it. Yeah.
Agreed.
Well, thanks for those stories. That's good. Good this week, military segment. So well done to you all. So we're going to start to wrap up the show now, but we're going to sort of have a bit of a run round as to what we're all doing, and all of the hosts over the next kind of week. So we'll start with you, Armando. What's on the plans for this week?
Well, happy 4th of July to all my friends here in the U.S. It's a holiday weekend. Yep, it's a holiday weekend, so not a lot going on for me. Just kind of the family is all enjoying. I think we're going to head over to Eastern North Carolina, go from this lake to another lake, and hang out with some friends out there on at Fort Bragg. So anybody who's been in the military knows Fort Bragg. But we'll be out there, and not a lot of flying, but probably a lot of lake time this weekend.
Nice.
Barbecues and fireworks.
Woo, winning. What could possibly go wrong? Yeah.
Nev, what's going on in the world of you this week?
Well, a quieter week I'm hoping for, I must say. It's been a very hectic one this week. Got a couple of things lined up. And then, of course, on Saturday, we were going to go to Portugal. But, of course, we're not doing that now. So we're going to Edinburgh.
Really? Is there something did something happen, Nev?
I believe so. So we're off to Edinburgh for 3 or 4 days.
Oh, lovely.
So, but yes, we're just tying up a few loose ends for work.
Have a good trip, Nev. Nice to.
Yeah, absolutely.
I take it you're trooping up there with the good old BA boys.
Indeed, yes. We have to be very supportive at the moment. They need every single fare they can get. So we're going up there.
Is that 319?
It'd probably be a 319 on the way up and a 320 on the way back.
Okay.
Usually. So.
Nice.
Why does it change? Just out of curiosity?
It depends on the load levels, really,
Right, okay.
and also it depends on where the aircraft have come in from and that kind
Fair
of
enough.
thing.
Yeah, okay.
It's. I'm just noticing that those 1 hour flights now to Edinburgh, Glasgow, Belfast, and probably Inverness and Aberdeen, they're getting a little bit busier now. Finally, that's good news. But of course, as we come into the summer proper, it's the time of the year where the airlines need to make their money.
Of course, and this is the thing, isn't it? It's the season that it's this normally busy time of year that essentially keeps everything ticking over during the winter, doesn't it? As you know, it's.
Well, have a lovely trip in seat 1A, Nev.
Thank you.
Yes, enjoy yourselves. And Matt, what's going on in the world of you this week? Busy?
Not a lot. I've got. This was my last week in CHT this week, so I'm looking forward to going back to joining my delivery chums. I'm spending all day shouting at Yodel, although you'd be surprised how much of that was actually done. Even in CHT, so it's been a tough old week. I'll tell you what. For anybody who is, and I push this towards the aviation industry as well here. Anybody who is answering phones to customers at the moment, I doff my cap to all of you, because one of the things that I've learned over this last month is when people phone up, when they phone that number that's on the website or that's on their ticket or whatever it is, the person on the other end there literally has no idea what mood that person is going to be in, what they're going to talk to you about, and what it is that's gone wrong. So I tell you what, if anybody, if I could give anybody a bit of a tip, we all want to help you. Just be nice to them, because you'll probably get a far better response than if you go all off shouty. So if I could ask all of you to be, if I could ask everybody to just be a little bit nicer to the call centres when you call them, because it's a tough old job, and I know people are usually getting in touch because something's gone wrong and they're cross. I get that, but just bear in mind that there might be somebody who we actually know on the end of that phone who's got to have their ear bent as a result. I've had some horrible customers this week, I really have. Anyway, by the by, nothing to do with aviation, sorry.
No, nor is my week. I'm going back to work Monday. I'm back at work Monday. Woohoo!
Well, you are based on an old airfield.
Yes, I know. It'll be nice to get back up to our RAF Horham again in my office. So that'd be nice to get back to work and get back into the swing of things again.
Yeah,
so the weather's nice and breaking news. Well, not breaking news. It's you guys know, but I have actually got my first wedding disco to do tomorrow night. My first in over a year.
Wow, that's big news.
It is. I know.
That is big news.
It was kind of worrying session yesterday afternoon of getting all the equipment out to make sure it all still works.
Absolutely, yeah. What would have happened if it didn't?
I'd have probably rung you up.
Yeah, all right. I'm glad it was all working.
Just make sure all the pedo tubes are uncovered.
Oh, I will. I will. But
absolutely. Yeah.
So, social media links, saying guys and girls, before we wrap up: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Don't forget to search for us and follow us on social medias. WhatsApp number, that number +44 757 224966 if you want to get your picture on the green screen behind me and Matt here in the studios, and also Armando as well. The website, all the w's.plaintalkinguk.com. On there you'll find the links to our shop where you can treat yourself to a t-shirt if you haven't already got one. We've got loads in stock, and some mugs as well. If you want a PTUK mug, you can grab one of those on there as well. You'll also find the links to Patreon and PayPal as well if you fancy donating a few pennies to the show, which all help to support the show and move us forward. And also
including some exclusive videos that are available to our Patreon and PayPal subscribers.
If you become a Patreon donator or a PayPal donator, you will have access to those awesome videos, as Matt said, from Armando, which are pretty damn cool. Indeed. I will say. And there's also the link on there for website for Amazon as well. If you do your shopping through us, it all helps to send us a little referral fee, so that's awesome. So that's about it then, guys and girls. And email, yes, podcast at plaintalkinguk.com if you want to send us some feedback. We'd love to hear from you.
We would.
If you are listening to the show and you are not a live YouTube viewer and you are a listener of the audio show, we'd love to hear from you. So send us an email, podcast at plaintalkinguk.com, and we'd love to hear from you.
Absolutely.
So that is where we're going to bring episode 373 to a close. Massive thanks to all the YouTube live chat room this evening. Thank you to everyone. You have been absolutely awesome as always, and not forgetting as well everyone who downloads the show as an audio podcast. Thank you to you as well. So take care, everyone. So from me, Carlos, here with Matt in the PTUK studios, from Armando in his glorious studios in Charlotte, and from Nev in his fantastic studios in Buckinghamshire, and not forgetting as well John, our producer, who does all the background work as well. Big thanks to him as well. Take care, everyone. Have a great weekend, and see you next Friday. Bye, everyone.